marriage. This is an interesting topic because in today's segment, we're going to have this discussion. And it's one that is very important because, as you can tell on social media, there's a lot of people that's like, I'm cool being single, but then there's a lot of people that's like, I want to get married and I can't find the right one. So, this episode is going to be amazing. Make sure you stay tuned. What's up, Brave Arts community? This is Sean Heineman, your premier pre engagement coach, back with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, inspiring you to love fearlessly with my co host, Aquila Maddox. What's up, Q?
Hey, hey, what's going on?
How you doing this evening?
I can't complain. You know me. Same old, same old. Every day I'm hustling, hustling.
I hear you. I hear you. Do
Yo,
singles desperately want to avoid marriage? What are your thoughts on this one?
do singles is such a broad because honestly, that's kind of like what would you say, like an oxymoron? Do singles desperately, but no, because some singles don't want to be desperately single either. Shoot, you know what I mean? Some folks is out here like I'm desperately trying to partner up. I'm trying to get boot up, boot up, boot up, boot up.
That's real.
You know what I
No,
mean?
that's real.
So I think there's definitely a mix of everybody, and I don't think this is a really a new concept. I just think it's become way more prevalent, though, that people have become comfortable with themselves. I got plenty to add to that, so let's just go on and get into it.
For sure.
Today we have the lovely Dr. Krystal with us today, and she's a Nigerian. Pronounce that word for me.
Ebo.
Igbo dance and a Southern American classic. As a Black woman existing across multiple cultures and ethnicities, she has relished the beauty of diversity. And she's just beautiful in herself. Okay, I don't know if y'all see what I see, but I see it, honey. She is passionate about encouraging and uplifting people from all walks of life, all religious, non religious affiliations, regardless of your race, gender, sexuality, socio-economic status, favorite color, who your daddy is, your baby daddy, any of that. She don't care. Any other facet designed by man to divide human race. Without further ado, let's give a lovely, warm welcome to none other than the Dr. Krista. Welcome, my dear.
Thank you.
How are you doing this evening?
I am doing swell. I'm excited to have this conversation. I feel like there's so many hearts out there on the line that are just wanting to know, do I have hope? Am I hopeless when it comes to this topic and conversation? Am I to stay single? How do I know what's right for me? So I'm just, hopeful that we can put a little less aching to those aching hearts out there.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, for sure.
Let's get into it. So, in your experience across different cultures, do you think the fear of marriage is more cultural, generational, or personal?
I think it's all three, and I think that those three concepts are weighted differently for each person depending on where they come from. I feel like Western culture really has this individualistic mentality, whereas other cultures in Africa or Asia or India, they're more based on community and the importance of community and that impact. And so marriage is kind of weighted differently, in different regions of the world. Generation, I definitely think that that plays a part into it. Our generation, millennials, we've kind of see things that have deterred us from marriage or propelled us towards wanting that. And then when it comes to personal desires, we all have our own unique experiences that make up our ability to withstand the weight of relationships and marriages.
That's awesome.
I love that. That's good. Yeah, because I think, especially, I was thinking like the generational part, right? Because I mean, I guess I'm telling my age, um, our era. I'm 48, you know, so we were a little more community oriented, like literally community, not like social media community, but real life community, and everyone, we had. Well, the intact family was starting to somewhat decline, but you still had them. And then, with the 80s and the 90s, and especially with today's generation, it just seems like there's so many people that's like I don't need a marriage license, and I hear that from a lot of guys. We don't need the government in our business. That whole thing. So,
I think there's a lot of trauma, and people aren't just carrying their trauma, they're carrying the traumas of their foremothers and forefathers. And there's even a scripture in the Bible that says the sins of a father last into the fourth generation. So a lot of people are walking around with baggage that doesn't even belong to them, and they're not sure where to put that weight and put that energy. So it just instead gets rooted in fear, because of that generational trauma. And oftentimes people think, well, oh, I grew up in a two-parent household, or that person grew up in a two-parent household. Their idea when it comes to marriage, their ideology is this beautiful, perfect white picket fence image, when there are still broken homes that are created in two-parent households. And again, where do people put that trauma when they haven't seen the perfect image of marriage? They take on that fear of, well, what if I fail? Or what if I end up in something like my mom and dad had?
that's true, because you hear that a lot too. And two parent households. I mean, of course, we want that, but you can be present. You can be in the house and still be absent. Absent emotionally, um, and so the whole two-parent household thing, I'm all for it. But parenting and marriage, all that, it takes work. You have to be fully committed, hands on deck. So totally agree. What's up, Q? You good?
Apparently not. They keep on saying, which is the most odd thing ever, that it keeps trying to reconnect.
Could you try from your phone?
Just be it. I'm literally just trying to call it when my phone provides. It's my hotspot. I'm trying. Oh, to do. You're saying to call for my.
Yeah, see if that will work. I think another issue that people have when it comes to this is not wanting to deal with their own brokenness, because relationships expose a lot. They show you where, in isolation, it's easy to think that you're perfect, but community exposes brokenness, so you have to be willing to sit with, I'm not as perfect as I thought I was. I've caused harm to another person, perhaps, unintentionally, and how do I repair that harm in real time? And some people feel the weight of like punishing themselves because I've made a mistake and I've hurt someone unintentionally and I don't know how to repair because I've never seen what repair and conflict management looks like in real time. So it's like, how do I move forward? And then that conversation is now fear and desire going against each other, because I want to connect, but I'm fearful of what that connection might lead to and what it might bring up about myself.
Yeah, that's good. And also with vulnerability, like a lot of us struggle with that. Like, cannot actually be open. If I give you a little piece of me, can you handle that little piece, or at least let me see what you would do with the information that I give you about myself.
Absolutely.
You know.
And that's why I'm going to be honest, I've avoided relationships for a very long time. Because part of me, or in those relationships, I wasn't as open as I could have been because I was guarding myself. Because I'm like, if I open myself up so much and expose myself to this person, what can they do with those broken, fragmented pieces that I'm still trying to work out and construct? So it is a lot of fear that's embedded in it. I believe millennials and other people, they have those desires to want connection and want relationship, but it's what do I do when the picture's not perfect?
Yeah, and that's the thing because a lot of relationships, uh, people are afraid of just being honest, especially when you meet someone. You meet someone, and it's like, okay, we're cool, but then it's this internal struggle with I like them, but, and so sometimes we have to be okay with opening ourselves up and giving people, like I said, just a little piece of you, and let them go with that, because our tagline at Scared to Remarry is love fearlessly. So my biggest thing is, if you're going to love, do it fearlessly. And so
Exactly.
that way, if it doesn't work, at least you can walk away and say that I walked away with knowing that I put my best foot forward, and I can walk away in peace knowing that I gave it my all, opposed to maybe having that struggle with, oh, I wish I would have gave a little more, or so.
No, absolutely. And one thing my guy tells me is that like life is a school, and when he told me that, it kind of let off a light bulb in me because he's like, we're here to learn, and you can't learn lessons on your own. And I feel like a lot of young people and people in general are risk avoidant. They're like, whatever is not going to cause heartbreak, whatever is not going to cause pain. When often that's the catalyst for growth because you really get the opportunity to examine yourself. So it's sometimes it's just finding that person who's willing to go to school with me, who's willing to get on that bus, and ride through the terrain, and we learn and we grow together.
I love that. That is so good.
Yeah, that's really good.
It is, and since we're here, is the avoidance of marriage a sign of empowerment and self awareness, or fear masked as independence?
I think it can be both.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are walking in deep awareness and are able to say, because I've said it in relationships in the past, like, hey, this is all the capacity that I have to give right now. I can't give you commitment, but I can be your friend. So some people, when they have that level of awareness, they just know right now is my independent season, and that's okay. I tell young guys, there's a very small percentage of you all that should get married and seek true commitment before the age of 30, probably even before the age of 33. But there's that special case, maybe 10-15% that can handle the weight of commitment in their 20s. And I think being honest, open, and vulnerable about this is where I'm at in this season and this is what I have to give. Because love isn't selfish. Love is patient, love is kind, love is all these things. So when you're truly wanting to engage with someone, it's being selfless enough to say, this is all that I have to offer. If it's not enough for you, you're free to walk. If it is enough for you, then let's see where this can go.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: since we're here, you said about a small percentage of men, maybe in their 20s, should marry. What's the, because I agree with you, and it's an unpopular opinion, but let's talk about that a little more. What make you say that?
I think that men have a unique trajectory of finding themselves in a country that doesn't want them to be found, especially in young black males, where identity is always at the precipice of everything. You have social media trying to tell you who to be, rap music trying to tell you who to be, mom, dad, brother, sister. So it's like finding yourself in the midst of all that noise, being able to get to a place of silence and stillness to truly connect with your highest self, your highest state of consciousness. And then once you have that awareness of who you are and how you show up, then you do the work. Then you do the digging out of, what can't I take into a relationship? What can't I take into a marriage? What do I need to work on within myself? And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of resilience. It takes a lot of resisting, social cues and, cultural innuendos, and saying, I'm choosing to honor my sacred self and to learn about myself before I interact with another human being on the level of love and intimacy. Because how can you be intimate with someone if you haven't even looked into yourself? If someone said it, intimacy into me see. You have to see within yourself first.
Right.
Yeah, learn what qualities that you have that are loving, what qualities that you have that could be harmful to another person. So I think that men just deserve the opportunity, as do women, to take the time to learn yourself first. Learn your likes and your dislikes, learn what you love, learn how you show up in love. And how do you show up for yourself in love? Because how you show up for yourself is going to be how you show up for that next person.
Yeah, because I was talking about this the other day on Fanbase, and the room was maybe ages 35 to 45, maybe, and a lot of them were saying that they don't know if they want to get married. They're like, because people have commitment issues and all these different things. And I was wondering, I told the room, is this what happens when we marry older? Because the more, by the time you 35, how many relationships have you had since 35? And how much unpacking you will have to do. But say if you married at 22, and I'm not saying that everything, everybody has to get married in their 20s. I'm just saying, if you marry younger, at least you won't have that much baggage. Chances are you might not have a child, and you actually get to grow with someone. But when you're 35, 40, you probably got a divorce under your belt, maybe two. You have some children, and it like there's so much that comes with marrying older. You could say you wiser, and I get it, but there's other factors that come into play when you marry older too.
Absolutely. There is a level of baggage that can come into that, just in the sense of if you feel like you've experienced failure after failure, heartbreak after heartbreak, then that can shake a person's faith to the point of like, how do I believe that what I have with this person who's come into my life is true? How can I believe that I'm showing up whole in this new relationship and opportunity? But like you said, there's a yin and yang with everything, and people who marry younger, they could oftentimes end up in divorce just because they haven't truly learned themselves, and they wake up one day 5 years 10 years down the line a whole new version of themselves, and they're like, wow, this version of me is not compatible with this situation that I'm in. What do I do? And they end up causing harm and damage along the way. So I really think no matter what age, and honestly, if we want to get into it, I think that our community of people can do a better job of helping our young people identify who they are. Like parents, sit with your kids more often than not. Look at them, examine them, watch them, see what their capabilities are, what their talents are, if they have any narcissistic tendencies. Really study and pay attention to your children and help cultivate them into the person that you see that they can be. Speak life over your children. Help them to identify themselves. And I feel like oftentimes our kids in our community don't get that. So they're grasping at straws, trying to create some sort of personality out of what they're seeing out there in the world. A little bit of this rapper, a little bit of this, a little bit of this viral person, and they're creating an identity that's not true to themselves, which is, someday they're going to wake up and feel like they've betrayed themselves and wasted their time, and that they were betrayed by those who were sent here to instruct them and to lead them.
Love that. That is so
I was
good.
gonna say that even with the, I was gonna say that even with getting married older, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Even with getting married older, it could also be when we're talking about marriage avoidant. It could be the fact that you actually just spoke to. The fact that people have witnessed so many other people get married at these various ages, unprepared, financially at a deficit, and things like that, emotionally unstable or immature. And so they make a decision saying, I am not going to be that version of norm where I'm just so hell bent on getting married, but I'm not in a good situation for myself. I'm not satisfied because some people forsake the life they desire once they get with someone else because they've now partnered with a person who's not as mature financially or a person who's not as mature emotionally. Therefore, where a person may be more willing and apt to network and do business with various people, they might get in a relationship with a person that finds themselves feeling insecure about that person who connects. And now they're starting to limit themselves on what they do. So there's so many different things that people see that they're like, I don't really want to sign up for that narrative. So I want to be very solid in my life and who I am and where I am so I can stand firm on my boundaries, know exactly what I want to connect with. So I got married at 18 years old. I never advise nobody to do that. I was happily married, but there was a lot of resources and tools that we did not have to sustain the marriage. And even though we had a lot of wisdom and good advice, there was still way more resources that we need to continue to keep us. So, to your very point, I do think it's very normal to wake up to saying, I don't really know who I am. I'm trying not to forsake this relationship, but it may cost me the relationship trying to navigate, like you said, this identity crisis.
And a lot of it is you have to learn how to hold space for your emotions and hold space for someone else's emotions too. And finding that balance and saying like, I've committed to this and I'm not going to leave. I'm seeking to repair, to stay connected, and to grow together. And growing together doesn't mean like we have to look the same and grow at the exact same rate, but it's I'm holding you up as you grow and you explore new parts of yourself, and you hold me up as I grow. And we create that
Yep.
space to constantly meet in the middle.
Absolutely. And that's an art. that I don't think that immature hearts, minds, and feelings always have a good grasp on.
I absolutely agree. And that's how you end up fumbling good people, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you don't learn how to hold space for yourself, you can't learn how to hold space for someone else. You know, and then when a person constantly feels like you're not holding space for them, they're going to start to retreat inward, you know, and you're going to get a new version of that person and blame that person for what's changed.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and there's and the thing about marriage is like there's really no a perfect time. Like it just depends on the person, their maturity, time, meeting the right person. I think even meeting the right person is a art. I think that's even something that people can we can choose wrong. Just based on superficial things. But I do think over time, I do think when you are younger, it just I think you're more moldable, if that's a word, moldable.
Yeah.
I think when you're young, and again, I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just saying I think when you are younger, you both are moldable. You can grow together, because when you older, being set in your ways. I mean, you already have to unlearn when you get married. Let alone when you done been around the block a couple of times and you think you know everything. Uh,
And that was a
but it
part of the
depends.
challenge for me because I'm just like, I've never really had to fight for much in my life. You know, if I lost feelings, boom, I'm gone. You know, I'm not fighting. But when I found someone that I actually truly deeply care about, I know I have to abandon all of the old ways about me that would just, flight, freeze, or fight mode, and just be like, no, I'm rooted and I'm grounded and I'm stable in this love, and I'm staying because I'm committed to growing with this person because love runs that deep, and when people say, when you know, I truly do believe that, and part of knowing is knowing that I'm willing to die to parts of myself in order to bring this person in and hold space for them. And it's not a pretty
Absolutely.
process. Love is love is beautiful, but it requires transformation and transfiguration, and that's an ugly process.
And
And
I think that that's good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. That was it.
I was gonna say that part right there is those are some of the conversations that I don't think are had enough when we start beautifying the concept of marriage, because um we have much more of a seamless process of merging together. And then a minute that we recognize that we're not necessarily, like you said, either the same or it's a little bit more challenging in the come together, that's when people start to believe like, well, this might not be the person. So the reality is then too, how many, like you said, we fumble good people, but how many people have probably forsaken their spouse because of some of the places where they needed the transfiguration, or
Mm.
they needed the sacrifice, what did you say, to die certain parts, let certain parts of you die for you to be able to have. And that doesn't mean kill off every part of you, that doesn't mean you don't become creative, that doesn't mean, but that means that, like you're saying, I am yielding certain parts of, maybe you're a person who you're like, well, I want to go out all the time, and the person you're with says yes, but I don't go out all the time. So now you know um there's this reality that you guys are not necessarily matching, that, and they probably and the thing is people don't often say what they're not always willing to do, because sometimes they're willing to do it just for you.
Yes.
Just for you. They're like, well, we always went out. No, I went out because I wanted you.
Yeah.
That's real.
I want to know what you guys think about this because for me, I've had to abandon like the fairy tale type love. And I think a lot of women in our community, that's something that holds us back, is like we want this fairy tale type love. As an imperfect person, expecting a fairy tale type love when, I'm going to fall short of even delivering that myself. And just recognizing that it's two imperfect people coming together to create and build something that neither one of them have probably ever seen or witnessed before. And we know, like, when constructing a home, you find the plot of land that you want to build on, you have to get it inspected. Like, it takes work. Building those blocks, making sure that you're laying down a stable foundation, it takes work. You got to get in there and you have to get your hands dirty. And I feel like a lot of women in our community want a finished product. And then on the opposite side, sometimes men want a finished product. But I think that we women who especially want to marry within our community, we have to hold space for recognizing that we're still building, as individuals and then coming together as a couple. Because you could lose out on
Absolutely.
something great, wanting that finished product when it doesn't even exist internally. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that one fruit of the spirit. It's that patience. And a lot of people do not have the patience. And I always say, my old mentor used to tell me, say, Sean, great marriages aren't found, they're built. And very few people want to get their hands dirty. And like you said, people want a finished product. I mean, they want their man Amazon straight to their door. Drop my man off, knock on the door, the guy's out, and so I think that's something that's really plaguing a lot of relationships today. People just don't have the patience because we live in this on demand world. From our apps to our food to everything. So it's like it's the same thing for my man and my woman. I need my woman and my man finished. Even though you're 27, like I need you finished.
exactly. And if you're not, and I think that's another place where fear comes in, because it's like, well, if I'm not getting the full picture now of this person, because then that makes me fearful for what could our future look like. Could I even withstand this? Could I become the one that fails because I no longer am interested in the not so beautiful parts that I'm seeing about this person? Can I trust and have hope and faith that things are going to change? There was a pastor that said one time, was this relationship conference, and he was like, whatever qualities that person has now, whether it's anger, happiness, multiply it times 10. And if you can't take, because he's like, 'cause they show up sweet in the dating phase. He's like, but if you take that, multiply it by 10, and you say, I can't deal with this, he's like, then you need to walk away, because that times 10 is likely what could show up down the line in the relationship.
Especially when feelings are deeper, when the investment is greater, when your tenure has been, grown. Absolutely. But and I was it was something else you mentioned. Oh, when you were at talking about the basically the superficial parts of marriage and the expectations. I definitely believe that when you say, like, we want two perfect people, but then that's the part where we forsake being able to grow together. I don't Somebody asked me, I was talking to this guy on a plane, and he was and he had been with his wife for like 25 years, and they grew together. They did not have kids until they were married 10 years. And so he said he felt like they really got a chance to not only grow together but know each other. And he said, I just cannot imagine, because I'm divorced. So he was like, I just can't imagine being divorced and having to marry at my older age now. Now, he was older than me by probably 10 years, and I'm 44. So he was like, I just cannot imagine starting over. Like, dang, they're gonna have to, like, I'm gonna have to learn somebody. He was like fretting, just sitting on the plane, like, I'm gonna have to learn somebody. Like, I mean, how does that even work? Like, everybody's so stuck in their ways, and nobody want to bulge, and and all the nobody want to budge, and nobody want to do. And I was telling him, I said, I definitely understand those reservations, but I know for myself, and I think there are other people like that. We conform because conformity has a place. Like, when you're growing together and you become one, you conform to some stuff. And I'm not too old for that. And I know that we have, there's a stigma on older people where it's like, you're so set in your ways, you can't change. I rebuke that.
Okay.
I disagree. I think that people are able to change if they want to, and if you want it bad enough. You understand? And so I was telling him, I'm like, I want to be married. If I was with someone, and they ask certain things of me that may not necessarily be familiar, but it isn't going to compromise my values or my standards. They're not asking me, you know what I'm saying, to do anything that degrades me or anything like that. What am I losing? If you ask me, because I like to wash dishes by hand. If you said,
Okay.
babe, I don't want you washing dishes by hand, I need you to go on and get with 2025. In fact, this is probably 20, it's probably like 19, you know what I'm saying, 93. Get with it, okay? And put the darn dishes in the dishwasher. Now, I'm still washing dishes in 2025, okay? But if you're asking me to do that, what skin is off my back by changing the way that I'm going to be doing this? And somebody might say, girl, you working smarter, not harder anyway by using that dishwasher. And I get it, but it's relaxing for me. You know what I'm saying? If you were to say to me, and I do a lot of things, if you were to say, Aquila, I know you got like 13,582 hustles, sis, but I need you to reel that in. There is a willingness because I want to be with this person to conform to what is asked of me because we're merging together. In the same manner, I may say to him, like, hey, I know you're used to doing laundry every day on a Monday, but Mondays I'm off work. I want us to use that day to do. I'm just saying there's things that are called for both parties when it called from both parties when it comes to y'all coming together. So I think that, is it impossible for people to be pliable at an older age? Not impossible. Not impossible.
I
A
agree.
little a little tough for some folk because everybody like, I got my own and I do what I want to do. But it's possible.
Yeah.
I was just telling a girlfriend the other day because she was having a conversation with us about, staying with her man, leaving, like, whatever she's going to do. And I told her, I was like, a man that's willing, you know what I'm saying? A man that's willing and is still showing up this day and age, like, sis, hold on to him with both hands, feet, wrap your leg, like, don't let him go because a
They
man,
don't know.
man,
Dr. Crystal, they don't. I promise you, I don't. I pause coaching, but relationship coaching is my thing. When I tell you, that is what I tell every person that I've spoken to that is married, that is dating. A willing man is golden.
golden,
Golden. Baby, he don't got to do it right now. But I want a man to take me to dinner. Is he willing?
yes,
He may not have came standard with already buying you flowers, doing a romantic night every weekend, but is he willing? Because,
yes,
baby, if you insert and reprogram and he do it, he was willing.
exactly,
Yeah.
We all can be reprogrammed to do something. You understand what I'm saying? Is he willing? And the same with a woman. If you got a willing woman, a willing, look, the Lord even want a willing vessel. Y'all
okay,
tripping. A
come on,
willing
let's talk
vessel.
about it, because what
No,
does
that's
it
true.
hurt?
That's true. People, and Q, you're right. People can change. They can. And even sometimes that's a gamble though, because some people, that's the stigma is, oh, he's 45, he's 48. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And even in most of our heads, we have to reprogram ourselves because it's like, oh, I like him, but he's older.
Hmm.
That
But the
whole thing.
test is the test is doing life with a person. I'm not asking you to forecast,
Yeah.
honey. I'm not asking you to forecast a change in 5 years and 10 years and what this person's going to become. I'm asking you to look at the evidence now. The Bible says that you know a tree by the fruit that it bears. Baby, the Bible is giving us wisdom on good relationships because when an apple don't start out in a full size. It starts out very small and it starts out bitter. The way you're going to know that that fruit is bearing good fruit is you got to see the evidence. Once you get that good apple and it's in full bloom,
Yeah.
full bloom. So now that you got this full blown man that's 50 something years old, you tasting what the Bible say about God. He said, taste and you shall see. Baby, y'all better taste and see what these folks
Oh,
is out
now
here
you do.
establishing for you. What is
That's
they
Absolutely.
that's
giving
real.
you?
And you got to look at the small, intimate ways that that person shows up for you. Love
Absolutely.
isn't found in the loud moments, the grandiose of, oh,
Absolutely.
let me do balloons on social media and you walk into the hotel slow with the rose petals. Like, love is found in those small stuff. Like, giving me your last piece of the food because you know that I'm hungry and I like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, being a listening ear, asking about how my day was, being engaged, holding eye contact, holding space for me and my feelings and emotions. Like literally, like those things are irreplaceable. Someone who actually sees you, you
Honey,
know,
you
man.
about to make me shout right now.
I'm telling you, like
No,
that's
that's
what
good.
that's the beauty of it. And so something for me was I was in a relationship a few years ago, and I was just sitting kind of wrestling, with my own inner world, and I'm just like, okay, God, like I don't know. And God had me sit in front of my mirror. I was living in Dallas at the time. I was in my apartment. He had me sit in front of a mirror. I pulled out my diary, and God was like, write down the ways that I show up for you and how I love you. And I was like, well, God, you're consistent with me. I'm like, you're patient with me. You're kind. You don't judge me. You listen to me. You never tell me I'm talking too much or I'm feeling too much. And he's like, these are the ways that the man that I have for you will show up for you.
You know why? Because we were made in his image and likeness. And it is not impossible, but it does have to sometimes be a training. And we have to recognize that some people have not had a training. And that's the reason why when we talk about finding similar values, like finding a person who believes in God, why? Because I need your conviction to run deep for something above me. Because when you feel like you don't want to do right by me,
Yes.
for whatever that reason is, you will still do right by me because of the conviction. And I'm not saying that I'm gonna be out here disrespecting you and still trying to earn respect. I'm
Yes.
saying I could have just accidentally hit a nerve, and instead of you cursing me out or calling me out of my name, you still have a conviction that I want to still protect and preserve the love and the relationship and the future that we have. So I'm going to be mindful of my mouth.
Yes.
Right? In the same manner, that's what I'm going to be doing. You understand? So I do believe definitely in what you're saying that and but it's still it goes down to values. It goes down to, because if you don't align with the Lord, I'm not judging you at all, but whatever do you align with, does it put you in a position to where you do have some higher view of self that allows you not to stoop to low emotions, because we have them, right? Low emotions and different and difficult situations, temporary. These situations are temporary, and
Yes.
some people will make permanent decisions in temporary emotions. Your emotions are going to pass you. I'm not gonna you love me and like me in this moment, but when I'm getting on your nerves, that being on your nerves ain't gonna last that long. That's going to pass and wither away. But when you spoke about, like, so I've been divorced 13 years against my will because this ain't what I want for me. However, and I've dated and things like that, but here's what I'm saying. I've learned, and I've shared this with other people. There's been relationships that people start out real consistent. That's why I said taste and you shall see. They start out real good, start out real consistent, and however we get to the place where those things fall off, you know what I'm saying? This and it's not a matter of like, oh, are they caught in a bad moment, but it becomes their new consistent. My point is that I tell people, some of y'all out here, crying over somebody bringing you flowers and and all these other things. But I really do feel exactly the same way. Like, to be seen, to be heard, to be in a relationship where they want to hear you, talk to you, have you be a part of their life. Those are the love parts that you really want to make sure are there. You really want to make sure are present in your relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because you can always get flowers at a different time. If a person does not have a consideration for you, that goes back to, again, now you might be waiting on something for a while. If they not considerate of you now, and we're talking in ways that are free, how are you going to expect them to consider you in a way that's paid?
That's
That'll
deep.
preach.
And I agree with everything that you're saying, even thinking about like values. Like, yes, it's important to have values. Yes, it's important to be aligned. But are you accountable to those values? You know what I'm saying? Do you feel accountable to God? Do you feel the weight of, if I were to, because the thing is, like, I love this person. That was God's son before that was ever my man. So I'm accountable to God for how I love this person, how I pour into this person, how I speak to, respect, and value this commitment. Because we're stewards. So the relationships that God gives us, we have to pray to steward them well. And it's not about never making a mistake, but it's about being accountable and taking accountability and say, hey, I was wrong when I said that. Or, hey, I was wrong when I did that. I apologize, and repent in real time. You know what I'm saying? And seek to repair. And that's the thing about relationships, especially when they're in alignment and this is what God has called you to. The enemy is going to be constantly trying to create strife and contention in the home, and push you two away from each other. But it's like, how can we consistently every night pull back in, and make sure that we're staying close and staying committed despite whatever, might be trying to infiltrate this love? How do we stay rooted and stay connected?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think I was asking someone this the other day about who's the initiator in your relationship. Because what happens? Oh yeah, because I was watching an interview with Tori Roberts. I was watching it, and he was talking about something about being an initiator. And I was thinking, I was like, that's interesting because when both of you are ready to choke each other out, it's like who's going to be, and I'm throwing on my air quotes, who's going to be the adult? Who's going to be the one to mend the bridge? And the thing about that is, you got to have enough deposits than withdrawals. Because if you used to having those deposits, you get that person who's like, they might be a little more mad at you, but they like, you know what? They always kind to me. They always, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then when y'all locked in spiritually, it's like y'all know, like we both wrong or whoever's wrong. We need to fix this. It's just that conviction of the spirit. Like we can't keep going on like this because this isn't good for us. And God is really concerned about our horizontal relationships as well as he is. Like how the Bible talks about how we treat other people. We're just gonna go in our prayer closet and pray to the Lord, but y'all arguing, and okay. But anyway, go ahead.
One thing that like always anchors me back down is like that's my best friend, So I'm like I don't want to hurt my best friend, and I take that weight so heavy when I feel like I'm the one that may have messed up the friendship or fractured or hurt my friend in some way. Like I take that so personal as if I've harmed myself in some way, So that's really what it goes back to, and that's why. I'm a relationship coach as well. I'm certified. I've gone into schools, elementary schools, middle schools, churches, you name it. And I tell people a relationship that's not built on a solid foundation of friendship will not stand.
It won't.
It won't. You have to have common values, you know what I'm saying? The integrity, so on and so forth. But a relationship, and even the Bible talks about it, are you built on a rock or are you built on sinking sand? And
And
you have to be,
baby, do understand that some of that pebbly stuff that y'all see that look like it's sand, honey. It's sand. It look like it's strong enough to, but it's not.
it is. And
Okay.
that firm foundation also gets built on hard times and persevering through those hard times, and getting through that. That builds even a more solid foundation because you can have a solid foundation, but when those winds of life come and that storm hits and the hurricanes are rocking, have you built a strong enough foundation that can still withstand when the top of the house gets blown off? Are there still bricks? Can you rebuild? And that's really a big part of it is are we strong enough to rebuild and repair and move forward?
Mm-hmm.
And then letting go of hurt and letting go of offense. That was something that was so hard for me in relationships because I'm quick to get defensive now. Like, hold on, wait a minute. But I've had to learn that I'm an imperfect person. And it got to the point where I had to affirm myself and say that any correction or feedback that I'm receiving is for my greater good. I can take it and digest it without taking it personally. So it's like I'm willing to change, to grow, and to be molded because I came into this life to be the best version of myself. And that can be done with community and in healthy relationships.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. I have two questions. We got two. I got two questions that we got to get to that I need you to answer. This: how can singles do the inner work to determine if they're truly called to singleness or just hiding from the vulnerability marriage requires?
I'm gonna need you to. Okay, how can singles? Because I got the questions put up right here.
Mm-hmm.
One, you can book me and work with me as a relationship coach and a sacred woman's counselor. But aside from that, really, you have to sit with your shadow. I had to acknowledge all of the darkness that lived within me. It was even in a relationship that I was in that brought out parts of me that I didn't know that I had, parts of me that I had suppressed so deeply to become a better version of myself. And then when I started to notice that, I knew that I had to sit with myself, sit with my shadow, even hold my gaze in the mirror, look at myself and really examine myself see how I was showing up in relationships, have conversations with people that I trusted, that I know knew me, and ask them, like, hey, I won't be defensive, I won't push back, but tell me if I've ever caused harm in our relationship. Tell me how I show up for you or how I don't show up for you. Tell me where and how I can get better. And I went to several people that I trusted, got their feedback, and then started working on me. And one thing that I realized was I wasn't loving myself enough. That was really kind of the root of a lot of it, was I was not loving and holding space for myself. I had not forgiven myself for how I contributed to certain things, and I had not forgiven people for how they contributed to some detrimental moments in my life. I was harboring a lot of hate and a lot of tension and a lot of unforgiveness that was only holding me back. So that's where a lot of the inner work started for me. Self forgiveness, forgiving other people, writing, journaling, having dialogue, having conversations, even affirming myself and saying, I'm worthy of the love that I want to give out. I am love, and so on and so forth. So it involves therapy, honest self reflection, listening to your body. I've grown to have such an intimate relationship with my body where I understand myself on a very deep level, down to what my body is desiring to eat, because I put my body through rigorous activities. I work out 5 to 7 times a week. I'm very strict on my diet and what I eat and what I consume, the time of day that I eat, what I'm putting in my body, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So being so connected and centered with myself to where I can often recognize emotions when they come up. I might not get it right every single time, but I can recognize and know when I need to shift, when I need to sit, when I need to be quiet, when I need to release, when I need to open my throat chakra, so on and so forth. So the inner work, it's worth it. But a lot of that also comes from being in relationship and allowing yourself to be exposed to another. The Bible says iron sharpens iron. So does man sharpen the countenance of his friend.
I love that. I love that.
And that means that we got to be near folks. I agree.
And that, because what I hear what you're saying is that you're in tune with yourself, right? Which is almost rare in the culture today, because I believe a lot of us are just disconnected from ourselves because we always have our phone in our hand. We're always talking to someone. Like, where is that alone time, with the Lord, and that alone time with yourself? I think a lot of times we're disconnected, so sometimes we even choose wrong because we don't even know who we are internally.
Exactly. And so I'm 30, and one thing that I did a couple years ago was I cut out secular music completely. So I wasn't listening to worldly music. So it changed the frequency of my mind and my body. I began fasting. So I did 21-day fast, 42-day fast. I completely cut out everything and noticed a complete God transformation over me. Hearing clearer, picking up on more spiritual signs and sounds in my mind and my body, nuances in my ear. So I held sacred space for myself to be able to do this work. Um, and not only that, but I also challenged myself. I challenged myself to push past myself. I used to kind of be a fitness coach or whatever, and that was my catchphrase, was we push past. And so it's like we push past pain, we push past sorrow, we push past grief. A lot of people are ill because they sit in their grief and in their pain. They continue to replay the same old cycles of trauma over and over again in their mind, not willing to listen to a new soundtrack. A lot of people cling to pain because they feel like it gives them attention from people, attention that they've craved since childhood. So a lot of people it's self-inflicted illness. A lot of immune disorders are because people are holding on to trauma and not releasing it. You have to be able to release.
That is so good. So good. So good. Yeah. Yeah, we have to be in tune with ourselves. We got to have that time. There's a book I was reading by Peter Scazzaro called Healthy Emotionally Spirituality. Have you read that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Have you read that, Q? Healthy Emotionally
Mm-mm.
Spirituality? So in this book, just real quick, he's talking about having a Sabbath. He was like, on Sundays, we're not doing anything. We just gonna be as a family. We're just gonna be. And like he said, the world's gonna keep spinning. If I don't wake up in the morning, it's gonna keep spinning. It's like, so I can't think that I'm that important that if I stop, like God is gonna stop. Like, oh my God, like Peter, please don't stop because I need you, you know? And so I was like, man, I need to adopt that and just having a Sabbath where we're not doing anything. We're just relaxing. We're just being. And I'm at that age now where I like sitting in the garage now. I'm at that age where I like my garage. I like I like just sitting. I know I'm telling my age,
Nothing
but
wrong with that.
yeah, I'm just like I'm that guy that sits in the garage now.
And that's okay. You have to find your space where you feel like you can reach clarity, where you can hear clearly, no sound, no noise. Because the more you clog your day and plug your day up with noise, the less you're going to be able to hear from yourself and hear from God. God is
Yes.
that small, still, quiet voice. So the more that you have chaos around you, God doesn't exist in chaos. God is a God of decency and order. Where there is chaos, where there is sin, God does not exist there. He doesn't have to. He's clean, he's pure, he's holy.
Yeah.
So you have to rid yourself of those things in order to be able to access God. And I don't blame God.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
high and mighty. He doesn't come down off of that throne
That's
um,
right.
for nonsense. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of it is really just sitting with yourself in the stillness and the darkness. And there were times where I went into complete isolation. Didn't talk to anyone, didn't interact with anyone. I just sat with myself, in silence, and really just it wasn't pretty. I had to sit there and look at myself and be like, for such a pretty girl, that is so. That's your mouth, girl, is just woo. My God, today. And I had
Yeah.
to. And another thing is surrendering.
Mm.
I had to give those broken pieces over to God and be like, God, I'm making a mess of it. I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? But you are the author and finisher of my faith. You are my
Amen.
beginning and my end. You are my creator. You know what you want from this creation. And I had to give it all over to God and be like, God, examine me. And you got to be careful with certain prayers, because I was like, God, look at me, like, examine me, make me clean, make me whole, make me holy and righteous and pure in your sight. And you got to gut that like a fish. Certain stuff had to come up out of me, and it wasn't a pretty process. It's still not. It's a continuation.
Yes.
If I were perfect, I'd be dead and in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
That's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
God will do His work to completion, to the day of completion.
That's right. Because for some people, silence is too loud. They like I can't sit with myself. This is too scary because all of this is going to start coming out of me, and so they have to keep themselves consumed with something.
Which is why people don't get into relationships because they're like, "What if someone else sees this mess?"
And
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, because people don't want to be judged. People don't want to be seen as less than, especially in this age of social media where you're quick to go viral if you make a mistake. Like that doesn't leave room for people to be vulnerable and to be open because they're fearful of, well, what will this person do or say about me if I mess up and make a mistake?
Yeah. That's so good. Last question. Finally, what would you say to the single person listening who's afraid they'll lose their freedom or identity or dreams if they get married?
You don't have to lose yourself to love someone else completely. You will lose the parts of yourself that are not conducive for where God is wanting to take you. In order to elevate, you have to drop off that dead weight. Just like when Abraham went, to the mountaintop with his son to make that noble sacrifice, and everyone else had to stay down. When Jesus went into the garden, when he would go and pray, he went alone. So a lot of the person that you want to become is on the other side of discomfort. So getting into that relationship, being with that person, even if it just starts out in friendship, you
Yeah.
can learn so much about yourself and help another person learn so much about themselves. And truly, I ask, what is freedom to you? What does that even mean? Define that before you say that it's something that you can lose. Do you even know what it is? What is true freedom? Freedom is being unafraid. You can't
Yeah.
say that, you can't be fearful and say that you don't want to lose your freedom. You're not free. You're trapped in your own mind. You're trapped in generational trauma and generational curses. You don't want to lose your identity. What is your identity? What do you identify with? How do you identify? What is your identity rooted into? You can't lose something that's not even secure. So who even are you?
Yeah.
And lose your dreams. Have you defined your dreams? A person that loves you will help you propel you into your destiny and into your dream even greater than you could do on your own. So, what even are your dreams? Do you have someone that you can communicate that with? How are you cultivating your dreams? can this dream become reality on your own? I don't think so. You need people. I was a person that always thought I didn't need anybody, until I did need somebody. And I was like, this is the power of community. But in
Yes.
community, it gets dirty, it gets messy, but you still show up. You still
Yeah.
pour in.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say to a single person who's afraid that they'll lose themselves is form your true definition of freedom. What does freedom look like? Give it a smell. What does freedom even smell like to you? Paint the picture. What does it look like? Is it an open sky? Are there birds in the sky? Is the sun shining? Is it nighttime? Is the moon out? Your identity. Who are you now? But what's more important is who do you want to be? And what do
Yeah.
you need in order to become that person?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. That's so good.
Because
We
God
can
made
have
us
her all day.
all day, all day, and we're gonna
Yeah,
have to do this again.
yes.
Yes, for sure. You have to bring your significant other on. I'm pretty
I'm
sure he
telling
has
you,
an
he would
interesting
be a great
perspective.
addition. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's up, Q?
Listen, first of all, I just want y'all to know if y'all did not catch these nuggets, go get you some fries because there is definitely some to get, honey. There is some to get here. Do you understand? This lovely package of wisdom that's also wrapped in a bow because she's absolutely stunning is definitely worth connecting with. I feel like I need to book a sesh. You know what I mean? Like we out here, y'all, we don't need to be doing this by ourselves. And one thing that I was telling you earlier, and I'm absolutely a proponent of, is definitely having support and making sure that you're not doing it alone. We wing relationships too often, and it's one of the most and it is one of the areas of our life that actually should have way more education and have licensing and certifications and everything just to do life. Like, are you certified to be a mother? Do you know these certain things to check in with your child? Are you certified? And I'm a mama, y'all, and I need a certification. Okay, I'm just telling y'all, with this teenage daughter and this young adult son, I need to go to school for these kids is different. Amen. So all of that to say, we should have so much more conversations and dialogue because it's really going to set us on a path where we can break the generational curses. We understand what it looks like to be the iron that sharpens another iron, that we're not literally causing ourselves dismay because we're disconnected from community, y'all. So Dr. Krystal, you've been phenomenal. You have definitely given us something to take away and to walk away with. And we look forward to having you back. Do not be a stranger. Tell everybody so that you won't be a stranger to anyone where they can find you.
Thank you so much, you all, first and foremost, for holding the space for me, for inviting me to come on, for being open and honest, vulnerable, and fun. So, you all, if you want to reach me, you can reach me at my email, dr.kcc@gmail.com. I also have a website, drkrystalconsulting.com, where you can find my link tree and book me through that channel. I am revamping my website a little bit and what it is that I do offer. I'm working on a workshop for mothers, a workshop for women, and a workshop for those who desire to be in relationships, are in relationships, or those who are just single and want to connect with themselves a little bit more. So, tons of ways that you can connect with me. Please don't hesitate. I'm here for you guys and love this work that I'm doing. I want to help people reach their highest state of consciousness and awareness. And if you tap in with me, I can help you achieve your goals.
Awesome. And we're going to make sure that we also input that information below so that you guys will have it to be able to reference. We want you to plug in with our guests because we're not just bringing them, you know what I'm saying, to put them on display. Honey, tap in, get what you need to get. You know what I'm saying? So absolutely make sure that you reach out to her. And y'all know what to do for us. Hit the subscribe button. Do you not hit the subscribe button because we want you to be able to tune in with us every single time we have new videos and new content, wonderful guests, because I promise you they're never without wisdom and a good time. We also want to just thank you again, our Brave Hearts community, for being just so wonderful and constantly coming back, supporting, commenting. Absolutely. We love you. Brave Hearts, you are our hearts. And of course, It's Scary to Remarry is also on Apple Podcasts. Make sure that you tune in there. If you want to be able to drive and listen, baby, we got you. We got you. There's always a way to tap in. And of course, as always, it's always a pleasure to be with my wonderful co-host, Sean Heineman. Now, where can they
Hey,
find you?
hey, scared to remarry? Go to scared to remarry.com. That's all you gotta do. But yeah, scared to remarry on all social media platforms. I'm not hard to find. You will find me in these social media streets.
Listen, well, y'all know where to find me right here on this YouTube page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Scary to Remarry over on YouTube. That's where you'll find me. It's definitely a pleasure and a joy to be able to be a part of such a wonderful platform with a really great conviction and purpose to help you move through relationships through despite whatever fears you have, but with tools and resources to do so.
Amen. That's what's up.
Amen.
And we are out.